Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna make a Christmas dress because Christmas is just outside the door and I am super excited to, do some more festive stuff. So enough jackets, enough coats for now. We're going to make something super elegant. I have my tryout piece in the back already here so you can get a small teeny tiny glimpse at what we're doing today. And this is going to be a dress that is A-line. It has a button front. We have big poofy sleeves, just how I like them. And then we're going to have some ties in the back so you can cinch yourself in however much you like. So the dress itself is not loosely fitted, but it's not, very much to the skin. It has a waist, it has an A-line, but other than that, it should be rather comfortable for everybody to wear, and then you can just adjust it however you want and according to your body. So I think that's something really, really nice and very, good for a whole lot of people and different body sizes. So I'm excited to do this, to show you how it's done, and let's just get started right away. I have my first piece. This is the right front side already done. I'm sorry that everything's so washed out. I tried, doing a darker background because with this, it might be better to do a lighter background, but then I fear that this here is gonna be super dark. But let me change really quickly. So if I do this, is it now better? At least my hands are not washed out that much anymore. We'll see. I don't know 100% what I should do. So if there's somebody who knows what background is best for, darker colors, I thought always like a darker background for darker colors would be better so that there is not a big contrast between background color and fabric color. But now my hands were the problem. Anyways, we'll see if this works. We'll leave it. If not, for close-ups and stuff like that, maybe I'll need the darker background. Anyways, this here is the right front piece. And I already prepped the button tape right here. So as you can see, I added snap buttons to these specific places. Everything is marked in the pattern piece already, so you can just, copy that. But essentially, we're gonna add buttons and snap buttons to this dress so that you have the button look, but then at some specific spots right here where, you're gonna have that tie and you'll need a little bit more support than a few buttons down the front so that it's not just springing open. We are going to add some invisible snap buttons. So I have my right side facing down. So as you can see right here, this is the wrong side of the button tape. I ironed in the centimeter seam allowance and then ironed the button tape in. And right here, I marked at these specific spots that are, in the paper pattern where I should add the snap buttons. And then only that one layer with the opening down, so towards the body, I added the snap buttons. According to whatever snap buttons you're using, maybe you're hand sewing them, then this is like totally different, but just work according to the instructions that your specific snap buttons give you because all of them are different. But essentially you need to add one piece of the snap button to the right inner button tape. What is this? The facing, I guess, of the button tape, so that we can continue working on. We're not gonna add the buttons for now, but we can already iron in the seam allowance and prep the button tape as exactly the same way as I just prepped the other button tape off camera, just minus the snap buttons. And now I'm going to fold it. Again, you're gonna find the fold line in the pattern so that you know exactly until where you need to fold and also put interfacing on and stuff like that, so none of this will be visible on the inside as well in the end. So with the front piece essentially prepared, you're gonna find a lot of notches here in the side seam of your back piece. These are the notches where we're gonna put the loops. And for the loops, I am going to make basically some spaghetti straps, but I'm gonna cut them down to be some loops. And I have a little bit of scrap fabric here. Mine is a little bit elastic, so for me it doesn't matter if I use a piece that is cut on the bias or on the straight grain because everything is a little bit elastic. That's the thing for turning, loops over like that. You need a little bit of elasticity for it to work. So I'm just gonna use this, fold it like here along the long side and sew along 5 millimeters, I guess. And then I'm gonna cut it down to size and turn everything over so I can cut off a few loops. I have 5 in each side, so I need in total 60 centimeters of strip because I'm gonna use 6 centimeter pieces for each notch. So let's do 60 centimeters of that. Okay, let's cut this down to, a small seam allowance so that the turning over is a little bit easier. Mine is turning because I didn't sew on the straight grain, that's why it's kind of twisting on itself. Okay, let's see if I can just turn it over with my turning needle. Okay, it worked. Let's just not lose it on the inside. Okay, and that's the piece turned over. I'm going to try to iron this flat so that the seam will be on the same side everywhere, because at the moment it's kind of twisting. So yeah, okay, that's not really working. I'm just gonna cut off my pieces, and then, they're smaller, they're more practical. I can adjust that a little bit better. So let's cut off pieces that measure 6 centimeters each, and we're gonna need 10 of those. We're gonna fold them like this, and then we're gonna have a centimeter seam allowance, and we'll end up with this much of a loop. And I think that should be more than enough. Okay. And these loops now get pinned on the right side of your fabric, on top of the notches. So my first notch is right here. And for me, it's a bit hard to pin them right on top of each other at once. So I'm just gonna pin them like this, all of them, and then I'm gonna sew them on and then fold them again so that they're laying on top of each other. So like that. I'm gonna repeat the same on the other side, just baste them on at 5 millimeters and then fold them on top of each other and then baste them on again. So this is what that now looks like. I think that's really nice. We can now go ahead and put right sides together of our shoulder seams. So up here, and close this. Just remember that the back shoulder seam is a tiny bit bigger than the front, so just ease them together and stitch at 1 centimeter. Let's iron the shoulder seams into the back. And now we can continue with our sleeves. I chose something a little bit more out there because I figured if you have a plain bodice, why not go crazy for the sleeves? So I have this really, really nice patterned jacquard right here, where there are like these bluish roses, bluish silver, and I really like the metallic threads in here because it seemed more festive to me. And blue and silver is always winter, will always be winter for me, so perfect fit. I have a few notches up here in my sleeve cap, and I wanna gather my sleeve cap to fit the size of my arm's eye. So I'm gonna find that notch right here and then the other one here. And I'm gonna gather from here over the shoulder point to the other side. And I'm also going to mark my shoulder point just for later because I always lose it when I gather. So I am going to gather by machine, which just means that I'm going to use a large stitch and a tight tension setting so that the machine, doesn't transport fast enough and it gathers for me. And then I'm gonna adjust and, make everything fit once I put it into my arm's eye. So now, once I find the correct sleeve, I can put right sides together, so I know where my shoulder point is, so I can put that together with my shoulder seam, like so. And then there is my arm, obviously, the side seam, and the sleeve notch. And then from there on, I can, ease both pieces together. As you can see, there's not a whole lot that you need to gather, so what I did already fits perfectly. That's also because I'm using a stretchy fabric for my bodice. That makes everything a little bit easier in situations like that. But here you can see we have to adjust a tiny bit as it's not gathered up to size yet, but that's fine. I'm gonna do everything under the sewing machine because these gathers are also not, super tight. So I'm just gonna adjust that while sewing. Obviously, you can always gather as you usually would by just stitching twice into the seam allowance and then pulling on both bobbin threads. That's the usual way, and that also works perfectly fine. And then you have a little bit of a more exact way, I guess, because then you don't have like to work with all of this, which for me is fine because I'm used to it, but maybe if you're a beginner, you want to do it that way. Obviously, I'll have everything like that explained in my sewing instructions, so don't worry about that. Everything will be in written format as well. So now that this is pinned in place, I'm going to attach the sleeve to my bodice, and I'm going to repeat the same for the other side off camera. I'm going to iron my seam allowance into the sleeve, and I'm going to use a round tailor's hem for that. And I don't want to flatten the gathers for the sleeve too much, so I'm just going to steam very carefully. Like that. And now I can close my side seams. And I can do that now from the hem of my body all the way down to the hem of my sleeve. So I just need to make sure that this right here, this intersection, is going to be a nice, clean, perfect intersection. So I'm just going to prep this with some needles so that nothing, moves and everything stays as it should. And the rest I can just, put right sides together and close the side seams. Now, because we have these loops here in the side seam and they obviously need to face towards the back, this makes our seam allowance here in the side seam lay towards the front. So we have to be mindful of that and iron, contrary to what everybody has ever told you, the seam allowance towards the front so that the loops lay correctly. So for the neckline, I am going to add some bias binding that is pre-folded already to the neckline itself. And I'm going to start at the center front right here. There's a notch in the middle of the button tape, and I'm going to start sewing at 1 centimeter, so right here, all around the neckline and stop at the center front notch again. Okay, with that now done, I'm going to go ahead and flip the button tape on top of itself. You're going to find the notch right here where the fold line is, and then the fold line of the seam allowance that you ironed in should also match up with that notch right here. The bias binding, I'm just going to encase on the inside with it facing upwards. And then I'm just going to use a pin to fix everything in place. So you want to fold the bias binding upwards so that we can use it further. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the button tape now matching up with that notch up here. And this will be closed at 1 centimeter. I'm going to do the same thing for the hem while we're at it already. So also right sides together, matching this up with that notch. Like that. And all of them get sewn at 1 centimeter. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this down. Before I fold this outwards, I'm actually going to cut down the seam allowance of my neckline right here to 3 millimeters, something like that, so that I have more elasticity. Okay, fold this towards the outside. And now we should be able to iron the neckline nice and flat. Okay, I went ahead and also pinned everything in place so that now I can sew over top here in one go and have everything clean and tidy. And while I'm doing that, I can also go along the button tape at that open fold line all the way down to the hem and also fix that in place. And that is what the finished neckline looks like. I think it worked out really, really good. As you can see here, there is the bias binding. So all of this is now completed. and the button tape is also sewn towards the inside on both sides. Now on this side we had to do the buttons first, the snap buttons first, because they are laying on the inside here, so they're not visible here. And on this side we can just put them in through the whole piece, so it doesn't matter here. And then here we're gonna add the button holes, and here the buttons. So everything now is fine with just, you know, sewing it through all the layers. So that's the thing that we had to watch out for. We can also finish our hemline the same way. While I was sewing down here, I also tucked my hemline under so that I can continue folding it 5 millimeters all the way around. So I'm gonna put that in the description as well, but I did not notice that up until when I was actually sewing it. So just a heads up. And I'm going to do just a normal double folded hem all the way along the hemline, and then we can continue on. So for the sleeves, it gets a little bit tricky because they are so poofy down here. This is the elastic. I fitted it to, you know, my wrist size. It barely stretches to half of the circumference of my sleeve. So what we have to do, first of all, I'm gonna overlock around the sleeve because for my fabric specifically, it just frays a lot. I don't wanna lose lengths of the sleeve, so I'm just gonna overlock. And you know, you don't have to do it necessarily if your sleeve fabric behaves differently. But once we've done that, I am going to gather the circumference of the sleeve down to half of its size so that I can then sew the elastic onto that gathered side and, you know, work from there. But first, let's overlock and then let's gather this to half the size so that it fits to the elastic. Okay, I have both of my gathering threads ready, and I'm gonna gather it down to half its size, which I have marked here with some pins, so let's do that quickly. Okay, this is now gathered to half its size. I'm gonna arrange the gatherers underneath the sewing machine, but now I can mark my halves and my quarters for my elastic, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the sleeve hem. Just going to use pins. You can obviously also mark them with some erasable markers or tailor's chalk or whatever. And here I'm going to do the same once I have the gatherers arranged, and then I can basically just match up my pins in both hem and elastic and sew it just onto the wrong side so that everything gathers more together with the elastic. The last thing that we're gonna do are the buttonholes and the buttons. I'm both gonna do by machine, and then I'm gonna add these onto the other side as well. So I am going to transfer the placements from my paper pattern of the holes onto my right side, so where I have the snap buttons already, and then put them in, and then also transfer the button placements to the other side and put them in. Probably gonna do all of them by machine. I don't really feel like hand sewing at the moment, but you know, so let's do that. So once I close this middle section here, just want to demonstrate you, here are the loops. So I'm gonna pull here. And because of all of the buttons right here, it's never gonna open up. So this is really, really nice. It's also a hack. If you have troubles with that, just add snap buttons on the inside so that nobody can see it. And they're not gonna open up again because of these. So now it's just a matter of, you know, cutting down some pieces of, you know, some sort of trim or whatever. Some, what do you call that? Rope? No. Binding? No. Schnur. I bought some ribbon, I guess that's the word here. This is cotton ribbon that is just, you know, this is like heavy duty cotton ribbon, but that was the only thing that matched the color, so that's what I'm going with. And I'm just gonna cut off, I don't know how much I'll need, because I have 5 loops on each side, so it's gonna be a little bit, I guess. I'll fit that. and then cut something off. But I guess it's gonna be somewhere at the 2 meters. So I'm gonna have 1 time 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 times back and forth, and then times, you know, whatever your back is. So this much times 11. Okay, I don't have enough apparently, but I'll use all of this, I guess, then. And I'm gonna do that once everything is put on, because now that would be too much of a hassle. But essentially you just, you know, put this here and just loop it through just like a corset, and then your dress is done. Super happy with it. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you made something beautiful. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel and also ring the bell. Also, to get this video pushed out to more people who might be interested in content like this, also leave a comment. That would be super helpful and would support me so much. So thanks for that. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out my social media. Links to all of that are in the description down below. I'm doing short format content all around my projects and hacks and stuff like that, sewing hacks. If you're interested in that, links are down in the description. My Etsy shop is also linked in the description below. That's the most direct way to support me. You'll find the pattern already there if the link is there. If not, I'll update you with the pattern in you know, over on my Instagram stories, so you might want to check that out anyways. In any case, there are so many patterns over there, so there might be something different that you like as well. So please go ahead and check out my store and, you know, treat yourself to do something for yourself to get, you know, a little bit of your stress out. I like to do sewing for that anyways. Thank you so much to all of my members. There's also a button down below where you can join. That is also a way to support me. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!